What a trip, Steelers Nation. Imagine flying across the Atlantic, battling jet lag, and still walking away with a statement win. That's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers did in Dublin. And let's be real, this wasn't just about one more win in the column. This was a defining moment early in the season, a game that wasn't just important but pivotal. Coming into this matchup, we all knew the first 4 games would say a lot about the direction this team was headed. And with a bye week right around the corner, the Steelers couldn't have asked for a better setup. A tough game away from home, against a Viking squad that was supposed to be their hardest test so far, and they handled it with resilience. Now, sure, the Vikings were missing some key pieces. J.J. McCarthy was out, Carson Wentz had to step in, and that gave Pittsburgh some room to work. But don't let that fool you. This was far from a flawless Steelers team walking in. They came into Dublin with a lot of issues to sort out. Offensive inconsistency, defensive miscommunication, players underperforming. It wasn't pretty through the first 3 games, even with a 2-1 record. And yet, somehow, this team flipped a switch. This wasn't just a win. This was a shift in energy, in execution, in belief. We saw something click, and suddenly, individual performances that had been lackluster up to now took a step forward. Key guys finally showed up. And the best part? It all happened before a well-timed break, giving the team a chance to regroup with momentum on their side. One of the most underrated parts of this game is how it sets the tone for the next stretch. Heading into bye at 3-1 is huge. It's more than just a positive record. It's about the mentality. Players now get a few days to breathe, to disconnect, to heal, and to step away from the grind. And more importantly, they're doing it from a position of strength. They're not limping into the bye wondering what went wrong. They're walking into it knowing they just handled business and silenced a lot of doubt. That's the kind of mental edge that can shape the rest of the season. Of course, there's still concern around injuries. Calvin Austin had that scary moment after the game, landing in the hospital with a shoulder issue. From what was seen post-game, he was in pain. He's trying to reassure fans online, but make no mistake, it didn't look good. And then you've got Jalen Ramsey dealing with a hamstring problem. That's never ideal for a player at his position. Those kind of injuries are tricky and require time, flexibility, and full power to come back strong. The bye might help, but these situations will need monitoring. Still, with all that, the win in Dublin gave us something that might be even more valuable than rest: clarity. We saw the Steelers do something they hadn't done all season: improve in multiple areas at once. Blocking looked better. Spencer Anderson made an impact, and it wasn't just about his individual play. It was about the coaching staff finally showing flexibility, putting guys in better spots, making tough decisions. Darnell Washington finally got more involved. The defense simplified things, stopped overcomplicating, and just played football. That was a huge deal. One player even mentioned how refreshing it was to just be told to go play, instead of second-guessing and trying to overthink everything on the field. This game wasn't perfect. Let's not pretend it was. But it was a reminder of what this team can be when the coaching aligns with the players' strengths, when the talent gets out of its own way, and when execution finally matches potential. The Steelers didn't just beat a shorthanded Vikings team. They showed growth. They showed adaptability. And they showed that when pushed, this roster can respond. And now, here comes the stretch everyone's circling. After the bye, 2 games back-to-back against the Ohio teams. First, it's the Browns, a team that's earned some respect this year with a solid defense and some unexpected wins. They're not a joke anymore, but as someone once said, they're still the Browns. And then comes the Bengals, a team with a defense that's been borderline unwatchable and no Joe Burrow to bail them out. These are games the Steelers have to capitalize on. Win those, and now you're looking at 5-1. That's not a pipe dream. That's a legitimate goal. And from there, it's about stacking wins. Mike Tomlin always talks about that. Stack wins, build momentum. Because once you get through this next block, the Packers, the Colts, and the Chargers out in Los Angeles, the real gauntlet begins. The stretch that starts around Thanksgiving and doesn't let up. That's when you face the Bills, the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Lions, and then, yes, the Browns and Ravens again. That's a brutal finish. But if the Steelers keep building, keep improving, and keep doing what they did in Dublin, they won't just survive that run. They'll be ready for it. Let's also not ignore some of the lineup changes that quietly told us a lot about where this coaching staff is headed. Look at the tight ends. Pat Freiermuth and Jonas Smith saw their snap counts drop a lot. We're talking 15 and 13 snaps, respectively. That's not nothing. It's a message. And that message is pretty clear. If you're not going to block, you're not going to play. Arthur Smith brought that philosophy over from Atlanta, and now it's taking root in Pittsburgh. That's why Darnell Washington played nearly the entire game. 48 of 53 offensive snaps. That's not a rotational guy. That's a centerpiece. He blocked, he contributed, and he stayed on the field. The message was sent, and it's going to be fascinating to watch how that plays out moving forward. Even Ben Skoranek made his presence felt again, after basically disappearing since the opener. He got 18 snaps, more than both of those tight ends. And again, this isn't just about raw numbers. It's about trust. The coaches trusted Darnell, trusted Skoranek, and leaned into the guys who were going to do the dirty work. That's what this offense needed, especially with the O-line needing all the help it could get in protection and in the run game. Look, the season's long. Injuries will happen. Slumps will come. But what we saw overseas wasn't just a win. It was a course correction. It was a wake-up call for some players, a statement from the coaches, and a shot of confidence for a fan base that's been waiting to see this team truly click. The Steelers walked into Dublin with baggage, literal and metaphorical. And they're flying home lighter, sharper, and most importantly, more united. And as we dig deeper into what this game truly revealed, it's not just about who got more snaps or who saw the field less. It's about the philosophy that seems to finally be settling in. For weeks, fans have been begging for clarity. Why isn't the offense clicking? Why do players look confused, hesitant, out of rhythm? In Dublin, that fog finally began to lift. This was not the same disjointed unit we saw in weeks 1 through 3. For the first time, there was cohesion, there was urgency, and above all, there was purpose. That doesn't mean all the answers have suddenly been found. Far from it. But this game served as a reset button, a pivot point. And it wasn't just because they walked out with the win. It was how they won. The game plan felt cleaner. Players knew their roles. Instead of trying to force an identity that didn't match their personnel, the Steelers finally leaned into what was working. It was less about showing off play design and more about executing the basics with discipline and physicality. The run game got tougher. The blocking was more focused. The line, despite all its inconsistencies early on, actually gave their quarterback time to breathe, and that alone was a huge win. And that change in tone started with the coaching. Arthur Smith's fingerprints were all over this one, not just in the use of tight ends and personnel groupings, but in the attitude. This felt like a team that was finally being held accountable, not in the film room, but in real time. If you couldn't block, you were coming off. If you couldn't make your reads, someone else would get the shot. It was old-school football in the best way. Play hard, play smart, or don't play at all. And in a league full of overcomplicated schemes, analytics overload, and endless second-guessing, sometimes the best move is to simplify everything and just go play. One player said it directly: they were tired of thinking too much. The defense in particular felt suffocated by all the mental load. Too many adjustments, too many what-ifs, not enough instinct. So the coaches told them to stop overanalyzing and start reacting. It paid off. The unit looked faster, more aggressive, and more confident. Guys flew to the ball, filled gaps decisively, and communicated like a group that finally trusted each other again. It might sound simple, but when players know exactly what's expected of them, and they can stop worrying about every possible variation of a play, it frees them to play at full speed. There's also something to be said for the emotional reset this win offers. Winning before the bye is one thing. Winning a physical, challenging, overseas battle where you're tested mentally and physically, that's something else. And when you do it after being called out for underperforming, it makes the locker room tighter. These guys didn't just win a game. They bought into the message. And for the veterans, especially the ones who've seen a few rough stretches in black and gold, this was a chance to steer the ship back on course before things slipped too far out of reach. Now, there's going to be some heat on certain guys once they return. Pat Freiermuth, for one, has to step up. He's a talented receiving tight end, no doubt, But this isn't a scheme where that alone will keep you on the field. Blocking matters. Physicality matters. The numbers are what they are. 7 catches in 4 games on 10 targets for 65 yards. That's not good enough, not when the offense is looking for spark and consistency. And for Jonas Smith, the story's similar. A guy who had 88 catches for the Dolphins last year is now looking at 14 catches in 4 games. Again, those are pedestrian stats for players who are supposed to be impact pieces. So the challenge now is this. How do they respond? Because the staff has clearly made their statement. Darnell Washington isn't just being given a chance. He's earned his time. Nearly every snap in this last game went through him, and he delivered. His blocking was steady. His physicality set the tone. And that's the blueprint moving forward. If you want to be a part of this offense, you better be willing to do the dirty work. It's not enough to flash in the passing game. Not anymore. Same goes for Ben Skowronek, who's quietly becoming one of the more interesting pieces in this offense. He was practically invisible after the opener, but in Dublin, he re-emerged as someone the team clearly trusts. Not flashy, not a highlight machine, but dependable. 18 offensive snaps says a lot. That's time that could have gone to higher profile names, but instead went to someone doing the job asked of him. That tells you everything about where this coaching staff is mentally. Flash is fine, but function is better. Production and reliability are starting to outweigh pure talent, and that's a good thing for a team trying to build sustainable success. The bye week, as always, is going to be a chance for rest and reflection. But more than that, it's going to be a window for reevaluation. Who's earning their role? Who's playing with urgency? And who's just living off past performances? These next few days won't just be about rehabbing bumps and bruises. They'll be about setting the tone for the next month. A month that will define whether this team is just a gritty wild card hopeful or something more dangerous. And let's not ignore the wider context here. This division, it's wide open. Baltimore is dealing with injuries. The Browns, despite their flashes, are still beatable and inconsistent. The Bengals, without Joe Burrow, are barely hanging on. If there was ever a time for the Steelers to make a run, to assert themselves, to separate from the pack, it's right now. The foundation has been laid. The lessons from Dublin, effort, simplicity, aggression, those are the pillars. Now it's about building week by week, stacking performances, and not letting this momentum go to waste. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers in the NFL world have turned into outright speculation after the Pittsburgh Steelers reportedly made a bold move that could shake up their offensive game plan for the upcoming season. Sources close to the organization hint that the team has closed in on a deal for wide receiver Courtland Sutton, a player whose talent and presence in the red zone could redefine Pittsburgh's aerial attack. While the Steelers have yet to confirm the signing publicly, the buzz around Heinz Field is palpable, and fans are already imagining the possibilities. Sutton, who has long been recognized for his size, hands, and ability to dominate in tight spaces, seems like a perfect fit for a Steelers offense looking to upgrade its scoring efficiency near the goal line. Insiders suggest that the front office views him as the solution to a red zone that has struggled to convert opportunities into touchdowns in recent seasons. With his reputation for making contested catches and turning short passes into scoring plays, Sutton could quickly become the focal point of Pittsburgh's end-zone strategy. The rumors have sparked a frenzy on social media, with supporters and analysts dissecting every angle of the potential acquisition. Some predict that Sutton's presence could ease the pressure on the quarterback, opening up play-action possibilities and forcing defenses to account for a matchup nightmare in every formation. Others argue that integrating a player of Sutton's caliber might take time, but even cautious voices admit that the upside is undeniable. If the deal goes through, it could mark a turning point for the Steelers' offense. Courtland Sutton in the red zone is a combination that teams across the league would have to game plan against meticulously, potentially altering defensive schematics and making Pittsburgh a more dynamic scoring threat. Even without official confirmation, the chatter in locker rooms podcasts, and fan forums paints a picture of a franchise ready to make splash. Whether this is a strategic masterstroke or a rumor fueled by excitement, one thing seems certain. The Steelers are stirring the pot, and Courtland Sutton's name is at the center of it. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.